What's up, everybody? This is Drew Muzan. Thank you for tuning into another episode of Tapped In. Today's guest I got with me is none other than Mariah Scott, aka Peculiar Hippie on IG. She's like a real big creative. I'm a big up you. I'm a big up you. She's a real big creative in the city. Really tapped into a lot of different things. How you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited for this interview.
I'm too. Yes, we've been talking about this for a little bit.
Yeah, for a good minute.
Yeah.
So let the people know a little bit about who Mariah Scott is, who Peculiar Hippie is, and then how that name came about. But yeah, so first, who is Mariah?
Okay, so I'm Mariah, and I've been in Charlotte for 20 years. I'm 27, so I've been here since I was 7 years old.
Or,
I am a creative. I'm a curator. I'm a host and writer, and just overall bridge, I guess, self-proclaimed and other proclaimed bridge. In the Charlotte community when it comes to just creatives, art and music specifically, and now wellness. So, yeah. Am I supposed to be looking at you or the camera? I don't know.
Both. Whatever.
I'm
however
just gonna talk to you because I'm like,
however you feel. I'm not paying attention to the camera. Camera's there. I usually it's a tip to look because I'm usually the one
to say how awkward I am.
It's first interviews?
No,
okay.
But I'm never like everything is different. All the interviews are different.
Okay.
So I'm like,
hopefully this is the best one.
Yes.
Hopefully this is the best one.
Yes.
So talk to me a little bit about your name. You go by Peculiar Hippie on
yes.
IG. So and embracing that hippie lifestyle. I see you like my hippie drip and all stuff like that on the IG. So just talk about like where that name came from.
So Peculiar Hippie started, I want to say in 2009 or 2010. So it was right my senior year of high school, going into college. But peculiar, the word has just been a part of my life in general. I was born and raised in the church, and I'm still a believer to this day. And so the word peculiar specifically has been spoken over me just by elders or just people that I pass by. They're always like, you're not like everybody else. You're going to want to be like everybody else, but you're not. You're always going to stick out. And I hated it at the time because I'm like, I just want to get grown and like be grown with everybody else.
Yeah.
But so that was like a thing that just always was instilled into me. And then growing up in the church, that was always like a thing that I always just knew in the back of my head that I carried with me. Mm-hmm. And then going into fast forwarding into high school, I went to Northwest School of the Arts, so I was always around artsy people. Mm-hmm. My family has always been music related, gospel, hip hop, R&B, jazz. Like my brother's a musician, my father's a musician, my mother was choir director. So I've always grown up around music and around creative environments. And so when I was in high school, I just started kind of like digging into different eras, and I was really obsessed with the 60s. I was really obsessed with the 70s, and I really, really loved the just the overall sentiment that I got from hippies. Word. But I didn't attach it to my own identity until when I was younger. I had a nervous breakdown. Okay. And it was horrible. But that was like my first introduction into how important mental health is and how important it is to be in tune with yourself, even at that young of an age. Yeah. And basically, I'm sure we'll get into it later, but I had created an ulcer in my body, and the poisons of the ulcer spread, and I literally lost my mind. Wow. And so having to create the building blocks or find the building blocks to find myself again was a big ordeal. It took a really, really long time. But they basically told me that they were like, you can't afford physically to stress like this anymore, because if you do, you're not gonna make it. And so they're like, I remember the doctor saying something about like, you're going to have to like hold on to your peace or something. And that word just stuck out to me, and it just stuck. And so I took two things that are very important to me, the word that was spoken over me that I've always clung to, which is peculiar, and the sentiment of the lifestyle, which I always loved about being a hippie was, and I just combined them together. And that's what Peculiar Hippie stands for. That's what it means.
That's dope. Man, It just speaks
intricate.
something important.
It's messed
it is. It's very intricate because usually, like with the peculiar, like you hear that has a negative, not negative, but not a neutral connotation. Never really put it in a positive light, like you're doing it and encouraging people to be that. But like it's really has a neutral type of connotation.
I even love that because I remember being, when you grow up around and you're in a community of believers, you have old school believers, you have new school believers, and we all are on this different spectrum of what we believe, how we believe in different things. And I remember being around some older people, and they're like, "Don't you think that the hippie thing is going to like deter people from your message?" And I'm like, "Or don't you think you should change it?" And I'm like, "No, I actually would like them to ask the question so that I can answer it. Like, being peculiar, it is supposed to be something that stands out, and it is supposed to be something that that you feel comfortable with, and attaching hippie to it is supposed to challenge your mind. It's supposed to challenge and cause you to step outside the box of what you think something is supposed to be. Both words can mean one thing, but they can also mean another thing.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to take ownership of how I identify with it. And so that's what I did.
That's dope. So has it been well received?
Yeah, for the most part. I don't think I've ever had any real negative run-ins with it, even with people who don't understand it. They're like, peculiar hippie, okay, whatever. So, I mean, for those who want to ask the questions of what it means, I'm always down to explain. And for those who really don't care, who don't get it and just roll with the punches, I'm down with that too.
Yeah, because I'll be honest, like, I it was kind of like how, like, you remember, like, a while back, they had, like, little Childish Gambino names. And That's when I'm like, okay, maybe she just chose to...
I actually played that game.
Yeah, I did too.
I don't remember the name that I had, but I remember it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's just something silly, but no.
Yeah, so it's like, it's dope. Intention I definitely like that. So with that, the show being called Tapped In, I see you talk about how you're creative, you're curating, things of that nature. What are some things that you're trying to get tapped into? What are some boxes that you're trying to, not boxes, but some fields that you're trying to get into in the next year, in the future, that you're not so yet in?
So I think everything that I've done, everything that I've done as a creative has always kind of been, not, I guess, from a freelance perspective, because my friends and I, when we created shows or when we created initiatives or whatever, we just kind of did it on our own or had other people help. It wasn't necessarily like anything funded or any large humongous check or some organization has like sponsored us. It's never been like that. It's always just been kind of grassroots and people among the community just helping and chipping in to create something big. So I think over the years, what I've done and the reputation and the relationships that I've built has given me access to spaces and doors that I have never had, before, specifically this year. So I'm actually looking forward to kind of getting more into artistic spaces to do what I do, but on the more professional side, if that makes sense. So corporate. Yeah. So it'd be cool, and then to be able to bring the people that I've come up with along with me. So it'd be great to be able to create and produce shows, both art and music related. It would be great to be able to facilitate wellness events in a space where the funding is there for me to be able to, number one, sustain myself, but also to be able to bless the people who are working with me as well, because we've always, used what we've had and been grateful for what we've had, but we'd be grateful to get more, to just be able to do more, and also to just be able to survive.
So when did because you talk about you and your friends throwing shows and things of that nature. When was the first show? If you talk about the first show that you threw, first experience sort of thing, because I'm in the new year, that's something probably not 2020, 2021. That's why I got to build a foundation first. But to start doing pop-up events and just curating my own type of vibe experience. Talk about the first one that you did.
So I remember the first one that I ever went to just as a spectator, and it was called the AMCS Bodega, and it was run by Samir, who does Family Matters, who's still a big thing here in Charlotte. And also he collaborated with Alex K. Gray and Sam and Mike Namus. And so they created this thing called the AMCS Bodega, which stood for Art, Music, Clothes, and Sneakers.
Oh, right.
And so they rented out it's the venue's not here anymore, but the Chop Shop that was located in Noda.
Chop Shop.
So it's like it was located in Noda as apartments there now. But it was a venue that they rented out, and I mean, like, people from all over the Charlotte area came, and it was insane. Like, all kinds of people from different backgrounds. They all looked cool. They were all supporting each other. It was like a mini festival kind of, and I was absolutely obsessed with it.
Yeah.
And then the next time that they threw one, I asked if I could come and just bring my camera and take pictures. And so that kind of ended up with them letting me kind of help plan the next one that they did.
Word.
So that was kind of like my first little taste of getting my foot in the door in some sort of way. Yeah, I sort of like low-key lied. I was just like, yeah, I'm a photographer.
Right.
I just need a press pass. They were like, okay, that's fine. But my actual first show was at Duck and Swat.
I remember that.
Where when they were in Noda, in the Amelie's, like right across the hall from Amelie's or whatever, where Red 28 used to be.
Damn, I missed that spot.
Yes, so they were just getting started as well, and so my friends and I we were going to shows, but we wanted to create one for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So we all kind of banded together, a lot of my friends. And we said, well, we want to create a show of our own. And so we went over to Duck and Swat and asked Davida and Dion if we could plan our show there in August. This time, 6 years ago, we asked them if we could hold a show there. And they said yes. And so that was literally my first. I was supposed to co-host with somebody, but the guy ended up having some car trouble, so he couldn't come. So I had to host it myself. And that was it was such a great turnout that we had to shut down 2 hours early.
Wow.
Like, it was packed. We all ended up just filtering through the atrium. It was insane. And that just was the first, that's what snowballed me into hosting all the shows after that first time doing it, something that wasn't even supposed to.
And this is you as a 20-year-old?
Yes, I was 20.
Packing out a venue
at
20,
it was absolutely insane. And from then we were like, well,
that's crazy.
That's all we need to know that we can do it. So we just kept doing it, and we still do it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's dope, man.
Yep. It's cool. I like it.
So with that, we talked about going back to Peculiar. Peculiar Talks. I know like you said, you're doing the events and things like that. Talk to me a little bit about what Peculiar Talks is, your goal, and like how did that come about?
Okay, so Peculiar Talks is a platform that I started 2 years ago, and it's just a wellness platform that I wanted to create for the community, to just have a platform where, number one, we could talk about the things that we go through, whether they were serious mental health issues or mild things, but just a safe space where we could all come to really just vent, encourage each other, and also sort of learn and things like that as well.
Right.
I just wanted it to be like a visual kind of collage, really.
Okay.
And I wanted to not only include stories that had to do with me, but I wanted to make it inclusive and include the stories of other people. So initiatives like March is Women's History Month, so I always have gotten about 30 to 31 women, and I've asked them about their feelings about womanhood, or just shine some light on them in some sort of way. And in June is Men's Health Month, so in June I always use that month to talk to individual men about their things, or even if it's not those types of intentional months, just pulling people together to ask them, their feelings about certain things, and they'll just always be super willing to chime in. So it's not only a place for me to be able to vent, or me to be able to showcase or shed light on the things that I have going on, but I wanted people to use the platform to see, there are other people that are going through something that I've gone through, or also I can share what I've gone through with somebody else and just build each other that way, just for people to know that they're not alone. So,
So, was there any type of the next goal with the Peculiar Talks? Is just going to continue to be a platform?
I definitely wanted to continue to be a platform, but I think I want to 2020 and beyond. I definitely want to come up with more consistent content. I definitely want to do more videos. I want to do more actual conversations, recorded conversations. And then 2 of my girlfriends, we've banded together to create an event called Sam Sessions, which is a mental health and wellness event that we've put on for the community. We've done 2 this year. So I also want to foster that into what we do with Peculiar Talks, because all of that is wellness related.
Shout out Ashley.
Shout out to Ashley
Shayla, right? Yeah.
Butler and Shay Janice. They're mine. They're Sam. They're the S and the A to my M.
So you mentioned a little bit about consistency as a creative.
Mm-hmm.
How important is that as a creative from what you've seen? Like, how important is being consistent?
I think it's important, but I think it's also subjective. I think being on the internet, you can feel really intimidated by how many things you're putting out or how many things you're not putting out compared to the next person. I think that's the thing that can keep you from being consistent in your own work ethic. If you're being consistent behind the camera or behind closed doors, I feel like that will stand the test of time because you're creating work that can be put out and rolled out.
Yeah, right.
But when you get discouraged to the point where you just don't create at all, then you kind of get into this space where nothing is happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that for me, but when you are creative, you have to make time. You have to kind of do what you have to do to just put things out there. So if that means putting yourself on a schedule or scheduling things or planning things ahead of time, then that's what you have to do. I think that's something that I definitely intend to implement in my schedule.
Yeah, that's what the schedule. You said the word. That's the word for New Year's schedule is consistency. Because I'm like
planner and everything.
Yeah, so. I know. Like with me, this is like my first first videos like this 2 weeks ago. I think I shot some stuff, but that was the first time I shot anything since like June.
Yeah.
Since June, July. And like the first couple of months with that, like I struggled because I'm like, I need to be at the creating, guys. I need to, whatever. It's just like sit down, try to become more viral, sit down, and like the brand has kind of shifted since then. But I'm like, I felt those feelings of, man, what if people forget about me? What if my wave passes, all stuff like that? But it's just like Dave had said something when I was interviewing him. He had said, he had said, if I'm gonna be doing this for the rest of my life, what's the rush?
Right.
And I was like, man.
Right, and I think that's the thing, that it's just, you have to, that's why I said it's subjective, you know, because you have to kind of like scale it and what it means to you and everything like that. But if you are doing something for yourself, even if it doesn't have to be something that people are actually seeing, if you're working one way or another, it'll get done.
Right.
So,
That's dope. So with that, I wanted to ask you a question a little bit about, I talked about how Peculiar Talks is a mental health and wellness platform. Mm-hmm. What was I think you kind of explained it a little bit when you said you had the ulcers and like that, but what was the thought or the experience that kind of, if you can go a little bit more in depth about that kind of, not plateau, but kind of led you into the whole mental health?
I just remember, like, after leaving the hospital, being released and discharged from the hospital, I remember thinking to myself, I'm going to do what I have to do to make sure that people don't have to go through this ever. Or if they find themselves in this position, that I can share with them the things that I learned, the things that I had to pick up along the way. That's literally been the drive for everything, not just in wellness, but just in my literal calling, or at least a part of it, is really holding space for others. And I know that can be a term that gets thrown around a lot in this time and climate that we're in, but that's really what it is. Like, I have what I have in the reputation and the relationships that I have because I built them organically and I held space organically. You know, like, I'm not here for any clout-based reasons. I'm really here when I ask you, how are you? I want you to tell me how you are. It's so funny, like, I went to a Player Made, shout out to Elevator James.
I still didn't make it over there.
But I went to a Player Made and I ran into one of my friends and I was like, hey, how are you? He was like, yeah, I'm good. You know, and he just started like going in, and then when he caught himself like venting, he was like, you do this all the time, every time I see you. That's why I try to run away from you. I'm like, but that's really what it is, you know, like, everybody needs a person, and I wanted to be that person for other people in a healthy way, of course, but creating Peculiar Talks was really based off of my experience at 14, 15 years old, and that's been the foundation for how I serve in the avenues that I serve in every avenue that I serve. So art, music, and wellness, I'm trying to facilitate or hold space for creatives or just for people in general, meet you where you are and give you the love and support that you deserve. So.
Yeah, and I was going. It's funny. I deleted the question, but now I'm bringing it up because you just brought it back. How somebody just randomly just started just coming up to you like that. Off gate, we've only met a couple of times, but it's always been loving. It's always been affirming. And then I see you on your social media doing the same thing. You know, like that's just innate, or it's just you just made ever since that 14, 15-year-old girl.
I
you made
think
that
it's
decision.
always been that. I think I've always had that. Like, I've always been a people person. I've always really thrived and cared about relationships and friendships and family. So I've just always kind of been that person who cares. I'm the feeler. I've always been just that. Come here, let's go. Yeah. But that's always been a thing. But
that's dope. Mm-hmm. So with that, you talked about the other avenues and the fields that you're in. What was the thought or the experience that you had? Was it like a Vibe magazine? Was it a music video that kind of led you into the music and artistic space?
I think if I have to be honest, I talk a lot, or I have been talking a lot about the music and the creative culture 2011, 2012-ish. Because it's like, that's when Tumblr was like a crazy thing. Wiz and Kendrick were like really just busting out. Janae Aiko had came, and so it offered this like fluttery, low vibe to things, and just there was a lot of like, and then like when people actually look forward to like XXL freshman list and things like that, like
not no more, but you used to.
But that was in the atmosphere where like blogging and A&Ring and like music was just really in a place where like I like even hearing about Nicki Minaj for the first time as a freshman in college, or just all these music and all these artistic things that were happening where these universes were being created, and it made me feel like, wow, like I feel like I'm in the Renaissance. Like I feel like the Renaissance has been rebirthed, and it just made me want to be a part of it in some sort of way. I'm like, okay, well, I know I don't want to be a singer. I know I don't want to be a rapper because that's not God's will. And I don't want to be like, I'm not a dancer, I'm not anything. So like, what is it that I can do to contribute? And it was my words, and it was the photography as well. Like that was kind of like the medium that I first kind of catapulted into. But that was the time, like that 2011 and that era, like when things really started to shift. That was when that fire was like, yo, like, I gotta get on it. Like, because you think about like the 90s and you think about all these other eras that your parents and your uncles and talk about, and they have their era where like, they're like, I remember when I was this young and we were going to this and this and that. And so to be a growing adult or a legal adult, 18, 19, 20, 21, and you're in this era where you're like, wow, this is going to be the time that I'm going to talk about in years to come. And so it was so exciting. And so I think that was really the time.
It's crazy because when you said that, I'm like, when I came out of high school, I originally wanted to be a basketball coach. I had a love for music, but I had like a real deep love for like sports and wanting to not necessarily play it, but like to just wanted to be a part of that field. But then 2011, Wiz come burn after rolling, Cushion Orange Juice, Currency with I don't think Jet Life. I don't know what project was.
First of all, Currency has been out since like the early 2000s because Wayne and we could really go down there. But like you just think about like, and then like the Wayne era, like Wayne was running things forever, and you think about all these things that were happening musically and then even artistically, music videos and like everything. It was just a refreshing time, and I had to talk about Tumblr once more because that was really like a space where all creatives, like writers, photographers, everybody, fashionistas, like it was a sphere where people were just like throwing things in there. And people were praising it and constructively critiquing things, and it was like celebratory of like being weird and alternative. So it's like you could be the person who likes trap, but you could also be the person who likes like, wavy, chill wave type. You know, like it was such a cool time. So
yeah, and it's like that time, and then I had a blogger, like when you said blogger, I had a blogger. I used to go by the Music Head, Alex. I used to go by the Music Head. I used to have a blog, get everybody on campus, getting people to
I was
go.
doing reviews.
I was doing reviews.
I was doing
I had
everything.
a website,
Yeah, like
everything. That's what when you said that.
What a time!
Yeah.
I was like, yo, and then like I remember I saw like ADHD the music video, and that's when I discovered Vashti, and she was like New York Sweetheart, and I was like, I want to be like, I used to say I want to be Vashti and Questlove mixed in one.
I used to say cancel.
You know, like yes, because it's just like yo, like this is a creative young person, and they're around and they're in rooms that you always would like to be in, but they're doing their thing. Like that's all I wanted to do, and in part, I really kind of am doing the things that I wanted to do. So yeah, that time right there was the inspiration.
It's fire.
Yeah.
I had another question too about you talked about Vashti a little bit. Vashti, Karen Civil.
She's awesome.
They're both awesome. There's some more women creatives that are doing big things in the creative arts, hip hop space. You talk about navigating that field as a Black woman in mainly like a male dominated space.
I think it's interesting. I think as the years go on, I start to experience you have the moment where you're like, oh, I'm a woman in a male dominant. You have like that moment like, oh wow.
So you wasn't aware of it, you were just being yourself.
It wasn't that I wasn't aware.
Okay.
It just for the most part, it's been like people have always accommodated me and been cool about it. I've definitely had run-ins where I had to assert myself and be like, hey, like, you can't just like throw me around and things like that. But for the most part, I think because I was even being here in Charlotte, I think because I've always done things in the community and the atmosphere of my friends, I've never really had to worry about anything really because they've always been there to have my back. As a host, friends and guy friends, because I have a lot of girlfriends, but we've always been surrounded by both sides. You know what I'm saying? Like, we have our friends like Simon Something and Aaron Accent and Josh Henderson and Phils, and then you have like Autumn Rainwater, you have Summer, you have Sumside, and then you have like Aju Love, and you have so many other amazing women who are here. So I've always kind of had like an equal balance of everything, and people who will protect you, people who will take up for you, people who will let you know. I mean, Simon has gone with me in Autumn to business meetings to make sure, like, don't try to screw my friends over. Like I'm really fortunate to have people who have just always had my back. But I think in general, especially as I step into these more corporate spaces, I find how important it is to like be about your money, to be about what you stand for, to be very upfront, and to just really kind of assert yourself in a way where your presence is known, in a way where people respect you. So I definitely it's not noticeable. I think, but the tribe has really been important. People who will share with you the gems to make sure that you have what you need to have and know what you need to know as you navigate. So I'm really grateful.
And a tribe is very important. I feel like I'm still kind of building that myself, but like seeing that and hearing you drive off like 10 minutes, I'm like, man, I can't wait.
Yeah, it's so important. And fortunately, a lot of those friends that I have, they're childhood friends.
Word.
But even some of the friends have been friends that I have come into contact with along the way, and there are new friends that I'm making at this very moment. And so it's never too late. You're never too outnumbered to have a tribe, and it's really just about finding the likeness and connecting with it. And whether you talk every day or whether you talk every so often, it's tribe is tribe no matter what. And people who have your best interest at heart and who will actually give you what you need, and it's a reciprocating relationship that's just really important. So,
So I wanted to just your thoughts on mental health in the Black community. Like I know as a whole, like mental health is really popular right now. Mental health,
Yes.
everybody's going to a therapist, everybody's affirming,
Yes.
everybody's, doing
Yes.
that. But we've seen a rise in the number of Black people within the culture. Go see a therapist. Go be open and transparent with your friends. So just talk about, what are your thoughts on mental health in the Black community as of right now?
I love that it's being popularized. I think like you have to take the good with the excess.
Yeah.
But it's not like, hey everybody, let's all go do heroin. It's like, hey everybody, let's go get help with our minds. And so some people can take it as a fad, and some people can take it to be something to, kind of monetize over it. But the conversation is happening, and I don't really care how the conversation started happening, but it's so rampant that everybody is like, maybe I need to go. I've had friends that say, because one of the mental health and wellness events that I hosted with my girlfriends, Shay and Ashley, we did an event called Men Need Hugs Too. And it was a event that was men-centered for just mental health and wellness purposes. And we were like, we don't care what background you have, we don't care. Just come.
Yeah.
We will hold space for you, and we literally, all we did was introduce the event, and we sat back, and we weren't driving the conversation. It's important for in that space for men to feel that they can, unload and vent and be themselves. But in the Black community in general, it's important for us to know that we deserve to take time out to tend to what's going on in the inside.
Right.
One of the podcasts that I just did last month with Jack of All Spades, I talked about how we as Black people can feel like we don't have the time. I don't have the time to think about my feelings because I got to go to work. I don't have time to sit with you and sort things out because I have kids to feed. I have needs to be met. And so I love that, how it's becoming a thing where people are actually, making space and for themselves to figure out what it is they need, whether it's if you can't necessarily afford a therapist or if you need help finding one that is affordable, because a lot of therapists will meet you where you are, but we don't know. So a lot of us don't even know. It's not even the fact that we don't want to invest in our mental health. It's a lot of us don't know where to start. And it's not as simple as, even Google and things like that. Like, we just need somebody who's willing to show us the steps of where we need to go and how we need to get started. So it's super important. I'm not mad at how popular it's getting. I think it's very necessary. In whatever way that you find relief or whatever way that you find solace, where you can kind of, learn how to cope and be better for yourself, I'm all for it, especially for Black people. So, yeah.
And like you talked about one of the excuses you kind of hear all the time is, we don't have time. But another one I know that was kind of not big for me, but something that I never heard about therapy growing up in a church. I grew up in a church as well. You never just like, take it to Jesus.
That is so true. And it's like, and I don't want to step on toes, but it's like God created like doctors. And it's not just for physical health. Like, you go to a checkup to make sure you're not dying. You should be able to go get a checkup on your brain too, because if you're not functioning up here, nothing down here is working. And I obviously can speak and attest to if my brain is off, my whole body will shut down. And it has. My whole body gave out on me.
Yeah, I heard an artist one time he said, how can I advance if my brain a mess? And I was like, man,
it's so true. So it's like, Jesus and therapy can go hand in hand.
Yeah, shout out to Preston Perry with that.
Yes, like, it's so true. Like, you're not having faith in God, or you can by going to a therapist.
Yeah, and that's what the connotation is, because it's just like, I get and I believe that Jesus can heal everything, but at the same time, like.
But He's placed people in my life to give me the tools to figure it out.
And I feel like the church is
that was the case. That's why we have spiritual leaders and pastors, and they're giving us the gems that there's scriptures and sermons that we didn't even think about without the help of somebody delivering it to us and saying, think about God like this. It's the same way. Even if you want to go to a faith-based therapist, there are faith-based therapists out here in the streets. Like, so it's not like you have to just go to, because I do believe in guarding your spirit and guarding your heart and guarding your mind. And so you might not just want to give and expose yourself to just any old person because you don't know what they have going on. But if you want to curate that experience, you have all the power to do it. But you're not negating the presence of God in your life just because you need or would like to seek therapy. You can even ask for his help as you do it so that he can reveal to you the best place or the best person to go to. But God is the God of everything. He's the creator of everything. And so if you need it, he'll give it to you. But it's not like you're not slapping him in the face by seeking out therapy.
And that's why I think like we made that. Like we made it like, okay, I'm not having faith in God.
Right. And it's okay for other people to feel like that if that's what they feel. But also people, believers specifically, need to know that they should be free of that condemnation if they really need the help. If they really need the help, then they should go. Even if it's not necessarily clinical, like you don't have to be bipolar to want to have therapy. You don't have to have mild depression to want to have therapy. You don't. And if you do, absolutely. If you have the tools and the access to do it, you should absolutely do it. But the condemnation and the shame that believers carry with how we navigate, it's such a juxtaposition, I feel, because it's like I'm a believer, but I also have things going on mentally. And so it's like, hey, I have to talk to God and I have to lean on God, but I also need some extra help and some extra hands. And I don't think that that's negating the power that he has. But he provides you with the area and the atmosphere that you need. The people who can sow the seed. I mean, if 2 or 3 come together, I mean, look, there's so many things that you could apply to why we need each other. He created us to build relationships. So, you know, if some people don't agree with that I'll take the smoke on that one. But I am a firm believer who believes and who thinks that therapy is just fine. And that's that on that.
That's dope. So, with that, within the mental health space, self-care has also been a big,
But yes, it's huge.
It's huge. It's popular, really popular right now. So what are some, if you can give some tips to the audience, what are some things that you may do for self-care and the things that we can do for self-care, men or women, unisex, specifically black men, women?
Yeah, I think the most simple things to know about self-care is that it's what you make it. You don't have to buy a $20 bath bomb just to, sit in the bath and, let all of the problems filter out. It's not that. But it's small things. It's like finding the things that you like to do that give you peace. Do you like to write? Do you like to go play ball? Do you like to go, drive around? Do you like to go walking, running? What are some things that kind of take you out of your zone when you're thinking or stressing about something? And do that if it's healthy. I think those things, some of the things that I do is I journal. I talk to friends. Sometimes I just go. I have granny days where I just go by myself and I drive to all these, I'll just drive all around Charlotte and I'll just look around and explore by myself. I'll just entertain. I'll just entertain myself. I've had the most fun days. Take myself out to lunch if I have it. Even if it's $5, I can get a beef patty from Mama's and cocoa bread, and that's a $5 treat for me. Whatever it is that's something that's good for me or healthy for me or just brings me some sort of peace, I do those things. I think that's self-care. And if you have the money to get you a $20 bath bomb, absolutely go ahead and do it. But some of them can be expensive. But I think that do things that are just uplift you and help you take you out of that space. And then, eventually you'll come back to it and be able to kind of bring some solutions to whatever issues you have. But self-care is just really about tending to yourself, even speaking over yourself. For affirmations and things like that, changing your mind and kind of sitting with yourself too. It's kind of hard. That's a little bit more deep, but it is a form of self-care because you have to be able to deal with you. So.
Yeah, and that's what I've really been learning. I went to the Samoa concert last night by myself. Went to the Desi Banks comedian show last week, 2 weeks ago, by myself. But I'm because before it's just like, okay, I need somebody to go with. I'm not gonna go, but now I'm sort of embracing. Okay, And I might end up meeting people there, or might see somebody else that I know. So
yeah, for sure. And I'm used to being around people all the time, so it definitely was something that I had to kind of like learn along the way. That not isolation, but just time for myself. Alone time is good time. It's important for me to be able to have. I've learned to have fun with me, and I love it. I look forward to the days that I have to just do my own thing. It's really, really fulfilling.
So with that, I see one of your posts on Instagram a couple weeks ago, and you were kind of talking about your body, right? You were saying how you were embracing this.
Yeah.
And in the age of social media, where we're, a lot of people are putting on fronts, a lot of people are, claiming not to be themselves or fixing up their bodies. I saw you embracing yourself, and just like, talk about how important that is to be able to just embrace the body that you're in and be able to love yourself. Like with me in the last couple of years, like I've been really doing that myself and trying to embrace, like, yo, I look good. Like I remember I hit you, I'm like, I'm that, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, like,
and I love that. I was like, you, man.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, and just like really just embracing, like, yo, I look good. You know, whatever. If I got a couple pounds or not. So just talk about your journey with that.
I think it's just I just had this moment where I'm like, yo, like, I don't know if I was listening to a podcast or just talking to my friends or whatever, but we started talking about, or just a conversation about your internal monologue, about things that you think and say about yourself that nobody hears, or even the small jokes that you joke about yourself that you do to kind of just like beat people to the punch, stuff like that. It's just like, I got tired of, carrying that. I got tired of having goals to get back to my freshman college weight. I just got tired of, thinking about things that obviously certain things can change if you have if you want them to change. But it wasn't even about the weight or anything. It was really just about how I felt. And I had to kind of sit, just like I was talking about earlier, I had to sit with myself and ask myself, what is up? Like, why am I saying, or why do I feel these things about myself? And it just kind of like took me into a spiral of just thinking about early, being in school early and, having people pick on you, and then certain things that you've just taken and just adopted to be your narrative when it never was supposed to be yours in the first place. And so you think about how that sticks with you over 10 to 20 years. Yeah. And now I have to do the work of uprooting those seeds and like taking them out. So I think embracing yourself just really has to come from a place of healing and self-awareness and self-love, like the act of loving yourself in spite or despite what other people have said to you who tried to tear you down, and then finding the courage and finding the beauty in who you are. The pictures that I took of myself was really about me saying, all right, so this is a pudge that you have, and it might not go anywhere. Yeah. It might go somewhere, but it might not. I have to be able to love myself as is in this moment. If nothing about me changed from this very moment, could I be happy with myself? Right. Could I be happy with my heart, how I treat people, how I look? Like, I've got to find some sort of happy standard for myself so that everything that I'm doing, even with the relationships that I have, is not based off of a false sense of self-love or a false sense of confidence or a lack of confidence or lack of self-love. So I just really, I think to encourage other people, find your own beauty, find the beauty in who you are, because there are a lot of things that make you beautiful. There are a lot of things that make you amazing, and to really call those things out and embrace them. And once you start to embrace them, you walk differently, you feel differently, you're not fazed by things the same way. Things still get to you. Yeah, just you're still human, but it rolls off faster than it would where it would just be like, oh, there's something wrong with me. You just like, terrorize yourself. It's like, no, like, I'm chocolate, I'm round a little bit, you know what I'm saying? It's like, okay, like, I'm a nice person, so like, you either gonna take it or you're gonna leave it. Like, what's up? So, it's the same for everybody. Like, I just want people to feel that they can do that, because you deserve to feel good about yourself. You just deserve, you deserve to do that.
So real quick, before we get out of here, kind of two-part question. First question, I want you to describe Charlotte in one word, and then I want you to give me some do's or don'ts that you've been in the creative culture scene, some do's or don'ts that these jokers are doing that they should stop doing, and then something that people should do, you know, in terms of trying to get out there and their events and things of that nature.
Okay. I'm going to break the first rule a little bit because it's two.
Okay. It's two.
But
Okay.
I'll describe Charlotte to be a blank canvas.
Okay.
And I say that because Charlotte, you know what you're getting when you go to other areas. You don't yet know what you're getting when you come here, and we get to be a part of creating what that looks like, a creative culture specifically. And so I think that it's a benefit, and it could also be a little bit crazy when you're trying to work together to define what that is, but I would describe Charlotte to be a blank canvas. The do's and don'ts of creative culture here.
Yeah.
Do not come, if you are here and you lived here, or if you're coming into here and you're new, do not come in here, come to the city just expecting everything to just fall in your lap. You gotta put in the work. So put in the work.
Yep.
Don't expect the work to come to you. They're not synonymous. Do go out of your way to build genuine relationships.
Right.
And don't get discouraged if one attempt doesn't work. You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody is not for everybody, and that's okay. Everybody's not going to be on the same page all the time. Right. That's okay. Don't stop your quest to find your tribe or to find the community that you thrive in. Do come to events. Do engage in the events. Do your due diligence to create your algorithm the way that it should be to reflect the things that you want to see, especially specifically in Charlotte. Follow everything Charlotte. If you like food, follow all the Charlotte restaurants or the places that vlog about Charlotte restaurants. If you like the club and the nightlife, follow all that. If you like breweries, follow all that. We got hundreds of them. Right. So just do your due diligence to figure out where you can thrive, but don't go into it with bad intentions, or don't go into it expecting just everything to work out, and just don't go into it, comparing. Yeah. This is a blank canvas for a reason. Like, it's not supposed to be like New York. It's not supposed to be like Atlanta. It's not supposed to be like Cali. It's supposed to be like here. And we're still, if we are here and we are natives, or we've been here for 20 years, and we're still figuring out how to identify it, then don't get impatient in trying to find your way into it as well. So that's what I'll say.
We good on time?
23.
Okay, cool. Before we get out of here, give everybody your socials where they can go follow you at, all that good stuff.
I am Peculiar Hippie. That's Peculiar_Hippie on Instagram, and I'm Peculiar Hippie, all one word, on Twitter. And Peculiar Talks on Instagram as well.
All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Tapped In. Be sure to stay tuned for this interview and others. Like, share, comment, all that good stuff, and we'll talk to you soon.